My name is Eric Byler. I'm with Coffee Party USA, and I'm standing here with a hero of mine. This is Nigel Parry from Global Revolution. Nigel, tell me about Global Revolution.
Well, Global Revolution is the live stream channel that did the Occupy Wall Street, basically.
And what made it necessary for you to pull this together so quickly?
Well, I didn't. I mean, there's a team of people we've been working with since the Republican convention. Vlad, Dan, Andy, Flux, and we've kind of ended up in this situation. The first one we all worked together was during the 208 RNC in St. Paul. And then the second time was at the G20 in Pittsburgh a year later. And Vlad is kind of completely insane and has these great ideas and decided that he was going to help live stream the entire Occupy New York protest. Occupy Wall Street, sorry.
Oh yeah, Occupy Wall Street. So you watched the first week of Occupy Wall Street and you decided that some action was necessary from Global Revolution.
Well, they were the ones streaming it. So what happened was I watched about a day of it and then Vlad's on the phone saying you have to do this. So we started remote producing. We had 3 remote producers. We had 2 in Minnesota initially, and then we expanded to 3, and then I was doing it here from Pittsburgh. And remote producing is basically mixing the cameras, bottom lining, making sure the audio is okay, doing the overlays, text, and that kind of thing.
And so now you've expanded to more than just New York City. Tell me about that.
It seems there's about at least 50 other cities that are trying to live stream right now, and we've there's some supportive yins that's driving by. It seems there's about 50. It seems there's something like 200 occupations in the States right now, either in the beginning stages or already going.
200. So there's 200 places where you're live streaming.
200 places where there's an Occupy. There's probably 50 of them are at some stage or other of live streaming. For some, it's like they haven't got power where they are, or they're in really hostile conditions, or the weather's terrible, which obviously makes a big difference.
I heard that there was over 1,000, according to Occupy Together's website, but maybe you're using a different factor?
Those were meetup. That was like a meetup.com interface, so those were meetings in 1,000 cities where people are starting. That would be a good sort of sample of how many people are actually thinking about doing one in their own city. That's what that represents.
So it includes meetups that are in the future that haven't happened yet?
Yeah, it's meetups where people are just literally getting together in the coffee shop or wherever to decide what's going on. Then there's this daily cost list, which you can find at occupywallstreetevents.com. And that's like a list of who's actually got something serious going on. Like sometimes it's just a Facebook group, but they've got thousands of people involved, and a lot of those have occupations too.
Great. So let's go to the big picture here. Just a few years ago, we had a completely different playing field in terms of communications technology and where the people are compared to the corporate or the oligarchy or the elite, the plutocracy, and that's changing, and you're on the cutting edge of that. I wonder if you have sort of a philosophical or a historical perspective on that.
Well, it's kind of a big question, I guess. I mean, who would have thought that activists could stream live video from tens of cities around the United States? You know, who would have thought that this was going to happen? In the first week of Occupy Wall Street, there was no corporate media coverage. I mean, really nothing, you know, maybe a mention on the Huffington Post if you want to include them in the corporate media. But nothing from CNN, nothing from MSNBC, nothing from Fox. And then the second week they had to kind of take notice. And that was a week of mockery. You know, they just made fun of the protests and said, oh, nobody knows what they're here for. And then week 3 they kind of kicked into this mode of like, let's find reasons why they're illegitimate, you know. But during that whole period, we streamed 2 million different individuals, 7 million video streams, you know. So from our point of view, there was no corporate media blockade at all. I mean, who cares, you know? And definitely Global Revolution and all the people working on the ground in New York have created something that spread, you know. If they hadn't been doing their version of like their activist CNN, if you like, or their activist C-SPAN, you know, then we would never have seen all this, you know, for sure.
So it sounds like you don't share the anger that many people who are in the 99% feel toward corporate media. I suppose the outlook, I sort of share this outlook, is that we shouldn't be surprised that media empires that cost billions of dollars to buy and to operate reflect the interests of people who can afford media empires that cost millions and billions of dollars to operate. Does it upset you that that's the way they focus their news coverage and their other programming?
Well, my background in independent media is like I was one of the first people to blog from a war zone in Palestine in 1995, 96. And in 96, a team of us put together the first alt news website from a war zone. And then later on, we created the Electronic Intifada and Electronic Iraq and Electronic Lebanon websites. And I guess for me, it's like, rather than get angry at the corporate media, we've just tried to basically make them irrelevant, you know, because technology is coming to the point where this is affordable and we can do this. And it's a game changer, you know, so it's like I'm not going to sort of curse the darkness. I'd much rather light some small media fires.
Right on. Okay, well, one more question just to get to your background. So for some people, this might be the first time they hear about global revolution. How global are you? Is this some sort of foreigners? Are these Europeans who are coming over here to replace our Fox News?
There's a lot of Americans involved in global revolution, that's for sure. But no, the first big project they did was in Madrid last summer, I think it was, and they live streamed basically a People's Popular Revolution from the town squares. That was the sort of pre-run to the Occupy Wall Street coverage. So this group's been doing this for a long time, you know, and most of the people hooked up with that were Spanish people because it was in Spain. And here, like all of the people I've met, apart from myself and Vlad, I think are American citizens. All the camera team I met in New York are Americans, you know. And it was a solid crew. I mean, there was women involved, and it was pretty diverse as these things go, you know. And that was impressive. So no, it's not like some foreign invasion. Although that's kind of amusing.
Rupert Murdoch isn't actually an American, or I think maybe now he is, but okay. So, okay, and there's another question. So really, it might be also news to some Americans that, and I know you're a legal permanent resident here. You're going to be a citizen soon. So I don't mean to separate us, but it might also be news to many Americans who would be watching this that we're not alone in this global democracy movement. If you've been to Spain, have you been to some of the other countries where this is taking flight?
Not since this specific movement, no. But I mean, that's what we were trying to do in Palestine, was trying to encourage people to just use the internet. I mean, when at that time, 95, there was like 30 Palestinian websites, the total. Now, these days, there's thousands, you know. Palestinians are all over YouTube. Palestinians, you know, even the Merck, the internet relay chat software was actually invented by a Palestinian.
Wow.
Back in the day. Khalid Mardan Bey, who still gives me shout outs on his blog. It's really nice. But no, this is the only things that limit the spread of this technology are the things that the money, essentially. You know, computers cost money. Internet access is expensive in some countries still. You know, there's dial-up and there's metered calls and things like that. So that's spreading and that's changing. I mean, back in the day, you used to talk about the percentage of US homes that had broadband being like 5%, and these days it's probably 80 or 90.
Is that right? Wow.
It's huge now. It's like pretty much, I think 80% of Americans have broadband access of some type.
I hope your viewers can hear okay.
I don't think they can.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll put this on YouTube and you'll be able to watch it then. Okay, so what's next for Global Revolution?
Well, Global Revolution is all the Occupy Wall Street coverage, which you can see at livestream.com/Global Revolution up to now, is being put on livestream.com/Occupy NYC. And what's going to happen on the Central Channel is, as it happened today was the first day, because October 15th was the big day. They was jumping to Boston and even to Ireland. I saw footage from Ireland today. San Francisco, LA. I mean, LA's got a really funny occupation going on because it's like, it's Hollywood, right? So they've got like Danny Glover stops over for some Q&A on the live stream, and just immediately after Danny Glover stops, Tom Morello pops by for a free concert and then answers questions on the live stream. And it's just like, it's like they're sitting there in this sort of nice summery weather with t-shirts while people in New York are like shivering. I I was kind of joking with the LA people who I've been working with, because we want to show much more of this, because they have certainly an interesting occupation. You know,
Yeah.
theirs is permitted. Theirs had the first resolution from a city council in support.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
so extremely important, and we joke and we call them the yuppie occupation, because you know they're sitting there in t-shirts in the sun and Danny Glover's stopping by for tea. You know.
Yeah, they're not suffering nearly as much.
Everybody's been working on this, starting with the Occupy Wall Street that started over.
You want to hear this?
These were great.